It's a weird, uncomfortable conversation, but how do you talk to your kids about stranger danger? I'm Kelly Vroman, a former kids TV show host, longtime improv comedian, and now I'm a mom. And this is my friend Nina, who is a social worker with over 10 years of clinical experience. So Nina and I met when our kids went to preschool together. And Nina was immediately a wealth of information. Every time I watch you, I'm like, that is something I should be doing. You're constantly parenting your kids in ways that I think is just so good. So I trapped Nina here because I have had this question: how do I talk to my kids about stranger danger? I'm always a little bit panicked that my kids are gonna get stolen. That's normal, right?
The first thing I just want to mention is that we don't want to call it stranger danger to our kids.
What? That's what I grew up calling it.
Yes.
But that, okay, why?
Absolutely. So strangers are just people we haven't met yet, right? So we want to explain to them that strangers can be anybody you don't know, like a police officer, a teacher, someone who works at a store, and we don't want them to be afraid of those people.
Yeah, I mean, okay, that makes total sense now that you say it to me.
Yeah, so you
Couldn't you have told me this not on camera so I don't look like an idiot?
If your child gets lost in a store, we want them to know they can approach strangers. They don't have to be afraid. Some of us, when we were growing up, we were afraid of people we didn't know. We don't want to instill that fear in our children, especially if your child might be more anxious or shy. So we don't want to call it stranger danger for those reasons. Maybe we just call it tricky people, or we just talk about stranger safety.
How can we kind of identify a tricky person or feel unsafe? How can we teach a kid to know that something is an unsafe situation?
So a lot of this is just helping our children understand how they're feeling internally and trusting their intuition or trusting those gut feelings that they have. And a lot of it is, not making them give grandpa a hug if they don't want to, or, body autonomy and feeling safe within themselves, so that if they are in a situation where there's a tricky person, they feel comfortable saying no, or they don't have to say anything at all, and they can come find a safe person and to tell their mom or their dad or their caregiver that something really unsafe and uncomfortable happened.
This is so different from my childhood or when we were kids. I feel like it was very much like, no, Kelly, go hug weird Uncle Mike. Hug him longer or don't make it weird. But now it's like, no, you don't have to hug that person if you don't want to. And to trust their instincts. Close my eyes and leap. So that's some of the lyrics from Defying Gravity. In case anybody, anyway, trust your instincts and leap. It doesn't matter. So what are other situations that we should kind of talk to our kids about as examples for them to look for tricky people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, having the conversations with your kids about if a stranger, someone you don't know, approaches you and asks you for help. That's a tricky person. There's no situation where an adult that you don't know would ask a child for help with something like finding their lost puppy or looking for something. That would be a tricky person.
But what if the puppy is lost? No, I'm just kidding. No adult is gonna go to a kid for that. Oh, yeah. Were you ever told as a kid, don't get into a van if somebody says, well, I've got candy in here? Yeah. I'm sure the tricky people have broadened their tricks. It's not just candy into a van.
Yeah, so having those conversations about if a car approaches you when you're walking on the street, don't get near their vehicles. So if they're asking for directions, you stay a safe distance away from them and you turn and walk the other way. So, talking about you don't want to take candy from someone you don't know. I also tell my kids, if an adult offers them food or candy, check with me first. And I'll always say yes to you as long as I know it's a safe person.
So has there been a situation where with your own kids, they've been able to use this? Do they come to you to say, hey, this person has offered me candy, can I have some?
Absolutely. So, it will be at a sporting event or something, and someone will offer them to share their peanuts or something with them. And they'll always ask me first. And thank you so much for asking first. Of course you can have that.
Are you ever no, it's 9 p.m. and there's too much sugar in that. Do you still say yes because they told you?
No, so then we would just have the conversation. That's such a good question. Like, oh, well, it's close to bedtime and that's gonna, make you stay up for the next 17 hours.
So my kids are 3 and 5. When is a good time to have this conversation?
It's never too early to have this conversation. And so we want to start right away talking about things that make you uncomfortable with strangers or people we don't know. Always coming and talking to mommy or daddy or your caregiver about it. Some other key times you'd want to talk about it is if they're ever going to be away from you. So let's say they're going to a play date at somebody's house. You want to have these conversations like, mommy is not going to be there. And I want you to be able to stay safe. If you're ever feeling uncomfortable, here's somebody that you can talk to at this, identify a safe person at the party. Because the tricky people aren't always adults. Sometimes they're other kids who might not know any better. So those things, again, going back to trusting your instincts, trusting how your gut feeling, how uncomfortable you're feeling, and being able to talk to a safe adult about it.
How would you recommend approaching it with a kid who's very shy? And how would you recommend approaching stranger safety with a kid who's very outgoing?
In our household, we talk about having a big kid bark or a big girl bark or a big boy bark. Yeah. It actually comes from the TV show Bluey. One of the things is, when you say something and you mean it, you have to use your big kid voice, so you can say no really loud. We want to encourage our more shy kids to be able to have that embodiment of saying no really loud and not worrying about being impolite or rude, because it's about their body safety and feeling comfortable. So encouraging and practicing and role playing what it would sound like to use their big kid bark.
I feel like we should try it. Yeah. No! Get away from me. I don't like this. Mom, I need a safe adult.
That's perfect. I love that.
I'm really glad to be having this conversation now and not super later. However, it feels like we are going to keep having this conversation because when our kids are 10, when our kids are 12, when our kids are 15, there's still conversations to be had about how to equip them with ways to stay safe.
Exactly. As they get older, the conversations will change a little bit and you'll be a little bit more explicit on the things that they need to look out for.
Let's role play. Hey, do you want to come look at this video my cousin who's 16 showed me? Look at what this person's doing. It's crazy. Shh, don't tell your mom.
Yeah, so what I would say is that you would have an excuse then. You'd say something like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, or oh my God, I think I ate something and it's unsettling. You would have some kind of excuse so you can kind of keep your cool still.
Diarrhea. Say, I have diarrhea. I got to get out of here. And then you go find your mom. What if they're lost? It's a stranger, but the stranger isn't giving creepy vibes.
Yeah, so exactly. You want to have these conversations, especially before you go to a grocery store or any kind of department store. You let them know, if you get lost, if you can't find me, I want you to stay in one place. I don't want you to walking around the store. We don't want them walking and then you're walking and then you can't find each other, right?
Yeah.
So it's stay in one place and scream out my name. So don't say mommy, because there's a million mommies in the store probably. Teach them that they can scream out your name, Callie, Callie, Callie. And if they still can't find you, it's okay to talk to a safe person. So a safe person is a mommy or a daddy or a caregiver who's with children. They're typically safe people who can help find their own parent.
Oh, that's another way to identify, is it's an adult that already has kids with them.
Yes.
Is safer than an adult that doesn't have kids, we can assume.
Yes. The odds are in good favor.
The odds are in their favor. The odds are always in your favor.
And if they can't find another parent who has children with them, they can find someone who works for the store. So, identify somebody with the store logo on them or wearing a certain kind of branding on them. So
many of our parents growing up led by fear. If you might get stolen, you might get killed, it was all like, if you don't do this bad thing will happen to you.
So I think that's the way a lot of our parents did it was based on fear and how to protect yourself so that nothing bad happens to you. And that led to a lot of anxiety and a lot of change behavior and not, we were afraid to talk to people who we don't know, and then learned it as adults. So it's a conversation, right? So it's really based on your kid's own developmental age, how their temperament is, but always continuing to have the conversation and being curious as to what they're thinking.
So let's say your kid says that to you, I'll be your kid. Mom, I'm scared because I'm thinking about K-pop demon hunters, except it's all demons and no hunters.
So we want to validate feelings first. So I know that dreams can be so difficult sometimes. It must have felt really scary last night when you were having that dream. Thank you for sharing that with me. I want to talk to you about it. So we know that that's a movie. It's not real, right? It was really scary for you to have that dream. I'm so glad you came to talk to me about it. And then we kind of want to differentiate between what's real and what's not real. So it's a cartoon, some people created that. It's not something that we have to worry about. And then just reminding them that mommy and daddy, or whoever their caregiver is always there to keep them safe. Even when we're not in the same room together, I'm here to protect you, and that's my job. So you are always safe, and you can always come talk to me about those things.
Okay, but is like Squid Games real? I'm just kidding, my kids are not watching Squid Games. Things like this would be so helpful for me growing up. My parents were wonderful and did such great things, but Kelly, confession time. I was so naive and I just thought like, everybody is a friend and there's only probably a few bad guys out there and they always wear ski masks and drive vans. So as long as I don't deal with that, then it's fine. I put myself in so many situations in my life that could have been so dangerous. My car once broke down on the side of the road. I got into a semi-truck driver's truck and let him drive me 2 hours to my destination. What? One time I was late to work and running to the train. A guy I didn't know said, "Hey, do you want to ride?" And I said, "Yes," and I got into his car. Not all strangers are bad, but should I have done any of those things, Nina? And I'm so thankful that those strangers were not tricky people and or that other people were around and the tricky people couldn't take advantage of it.
Well, I think that sometimes we silence those alarm systems that go off in our brain that say, this is probably not the right move to make right now. And that's what we want to encourage in our children. So having those conversations from when they're little, does this person set off that little alarm in my brain that says, I'm not feeling comfortable right now?
Yeah.
And recognizing what that means in our bodies. So I talked a lot about this when I worked in the schools of when we feel unsafe or we feel that uh-oh feeling, it might feel like our heart beats faster or we have butterflies in our stomach or our head feels like it's spinning. So really attaching it to the sensations in our body that we're feeling so we're not turning off those alarm systems when we do get in those uncomfortable situations.
That is so good, Nina. In my life, it's always like, it'll probably be fine. And fortunately, most of the time it has, but just attaching it back to the body is such an empowering thing for them. So it's not just like, fear, let's look out. It's like, no, here's something you can actually pay attention. Our bodies have these built-in alarm systems that teach us like, hey, something's off. Pay attention to it.
Absolutely.
Now I feel so much more confident in my ability to empower my children rather than guide them through fear. Thank you so much, Nina. This was incredibly helpful. Nina is fabulous, and she is in the process of writing a book. And as soon as that comes out, we'll make sure everyone knows. And if you want to reach out to Nina and find any more, you can find her at ninacas.com. If you use any of these tools with your kids, please tell us how it went in the comments. We would love to hear about it.